These look really easy on paper, but I mean, they trip up almost everyone. So if you're about to sit this exam, you absolutely cannot afford to skip these traps.
It is so true.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive today into some really notorious scenarios. The kind where, even seasoned pros start second-guessing themselves.
Right, because the test makers know exactly how we think, and they use that against you. Like in our first question here about maintaining content consistency across a bunch of country-specific websites.
Right, yeah, the globalization one.
Yeah. So you're given a mix of tools to choose from: multi-site manager, AEM dispatcher, translation integration, and Sling content distribution. And you have to pick two.
Well, looking at that list, I know my brain immediately latches on to Sling content distribution.
Right, because, I mean, distribution sounds exactly like what you want for a global site.
Exactly. It's the classic scope confusion trap, though. It sounds perfect, but Sling and the dispatcher are, they're strictly just IT plumbing.
Wait, so they're literally just moving packets around? Like, they don't actually care what the content is?
Yeah, precisely. Imagine a mid-sized sauce company. The dispatcher's just there to keep the servers from crashing under load.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But your actual business tools, the ones making sure your French site actually aligns with your Japanese site, those are multi-site manager to reuse the structure and translation integration to, localize it.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Multi-site manager handles the reuse while the tech infrastructure just sort of operates underneath it.
Right.
But speaking of reusing content globally, how do we handle the smaller, reusable pieces?
Which naturally brings us to the experience fragments question. What's the primary business advantage there?
Yeah, the options are usually something like global CSS, reusable multi-channel structures, auto-translation, or JCR backups. And I feel like a lot of developers fall for the global CSS trap because of visual bias.
Oh, 100%. I mean, experience implies visuals, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or they assume it's some sort of back-end JCR backup tool because they're just overthinking the architecture.
But it's actually about reusable multi-channel structures, right?
Right. Yes. Think of it like a franchise template for a promotional banner. You just build that banner once in AEM, and then you can push it literally everywhere. Web, mobile, email. It is definitely not a JCR backup tool.
Right. Build once, deploy everywhere. But who actually approves that promotional banner before it goes live? Which leads right into our workflow question.
Right. Why do we prioritize AEM workflows? Is it to automate publishing, handle caching, manage design, or control permissions?
See, I want to play devil's advocate here. I'd lean towards permissions. Security is huge, and you want to lock down who can actually hit the publish button.
Yeah, that's the security bias talking. I mean, permissions just dictate who is allowed in the room. Yeah, they don't actually move the work forward.
Oh, I see.
Which is why automating publishing is the real answer.
Ah, so permissions are basically the bouncer at the club. They just check IDs at the door.
I love that. Yes. And the workflows are the assembly line conveyor belt inside.
Yeah.
You absolutely need the bouncer, but the conveyor belt is what actually pushes that approved content live.
Okay, so the workflow pushes the content live. But what happens when a million users suddenly hit that live content? Like, how do you reduce the load on those published instances?
Right. And your options are usually JCR cache, dispatcher cache, content fragments, or a local DB. And honestly, developers jump straight to JCR level caching.
Because they spend all day in the internal repository,
And-
right? Total familiarity bias.
Exactly. But the JCR is entirely internal. If you want to shield the publish server from getting hammered by public traffic, you have to use the dispatcher cache.
So the dispatcher is kind of like a front desk receptionist, just
Yeah.
answering all the easy, repetitive questions.
Spot on. The receptionist handles the basic traffic, so the CEO, like the publish server, doesn't get overwhelmed and only has to deal with the really complex stuff.
Well, the receptionist shields the front end, but what handles heavy back-end assets? Like, say I drop a massive image into the DAM, the digital asset manager. What triggers when I import it?
Yeah, your options usually include DAM update asset, activations, or metadata write back.
I would probably guess activations. Because if I upload an image, I want it active and live immediately.
And that feels so logical. But it is a massive trap. You have to strictly separate the ingestion of an asset from the publishing of it.
Oh, so guessing asset activation is wrong because it publishes the image way too early.
Precisely. The correct out-of-the-box trigger is DAM update asset.
Yeah.
The second you upload, it runs instantly to extract metadata and generate those little thumbnails. The actual activation happens way later.
That makes a lot of sense. So stepping back from all these details, what are the big patterns we just saw?
For me, the golden rule here is always separating the technical infrastructure like dispatchers and Sling from the actual business content tools. Keep your IT plumbing distinct from your marketing tools.
Definitely. And I'd add a one-liner to that. If you remember nothing else, remember that reusability and automation govern everything here, from multi-site templates right down to basic asset ingestion.
Perfectly said.
Which really makes you wonder, if a platform can already auto-generate renditions, sync global translations, and automate workflows, what role does a human content architect actually play when AI agents start dynamically assembling and approving these experience fragments on the fly?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.